Bantam Doubleday Dell Audio Publishing presents The Glass Lake by Maeve Binchy. (1952). Kit had always thought that the Pope had been at her mother and father's wedding. There was a picture of him in their house, a different Pope, a dead one, and the writing underneath said that Martin McMahon and Helen Healy had prostrated themselves at his feet. It had never occurred to her to look for him in the wedding picture. If she thought about it at all, Kit might have assumed that the Pope had left before the picture was taken, got on the mailboat in Dubliner and gone back to Rome. That was why it was such a shock when Mother Bernard explained that the Pope could never, ever leave the Holy See. Not even a war would make him leave the Vatican. "But he went to weddings, didn't he?" Kit said. "He was at my parents' wedding." Mother Bernard looked at the little McMahon girl, a mop of black curly hair and bright blue eyes. "I don't think so, Catherine," the nun said, hoping to stop it there. "But he was!" Kit was stung. "They have a framed picture of him on the wall saying that he was there." "That's the papal blessing, you idiot," said Cleo. "Everyone has them. They're 10 a penny." "I'll thank you not to speak of the Holy Father in those terms, Cleana Kelly." Mother Bernard was most disapproving. Neither Kit nor Cleo listened to the details of the concordat that made the Pope an independent ruler of his own tiny state. With her face down on the desk and hidden by the upright atlas, Kit hissed abuse toward her best friend. "Don't you ever call me an idiot again, or you'll be sorry." Cleana Kelly was unrepentant. "Well, you are an idiot. The Pope coming to your parents' wedding. Your parents of all people." Kit sensed something was not being said. What would be wrong with their wedding, for example? Cleo was avoiding the matter. "Shh! She's looking." She was right. Cleo was very blonde and tall. She was great at games. She was very quick in class. She had lovely long hair. Cleo was Kit's best friend, and sometimes Kit hated her. Cleo's younger sister Anna often wanted to walk home with them, but this was greatly discouraged. "Go away, Anna, you're a pain in the bottom," Cleo said. Arm in arm they ran off laughing and left Anna, who had the bad luck to be 7 and have no friends of her own. There were so many things they could do on the way home from school. That was the great thing about living in a place like Lough Glass, a small town on the edge of a big lake. It wasn't the biggest lake in Ireland, but it was a very large one. They called it the Glass Lake, which wasn't a real translation. Lough Glass really meant the Green Lake. All the children knew that, but sometimes it did look like a mirror. Sometimes on the way home from school, Cleo and Kit would call to McMahon's pharmacy to see Kit's father, with the hope of being offered a barley sugar from the jar, or they would go to the wooden pier that jutted out into the lake to see the fishermen coming in with their catch. They might go up to the golf course and see could they find any lost balls, which they could sell to golfers. There was never much to look at in the post office. They wouldn't delay long there. Mrs. Henley's, the drapery shop, sometimes had nice Fair Isle jumpers and the occasional pair of shoes you might like. But Mrs. Henley didn't like schoolgirls gathering around the window in case it put other people off. She would come out and shoo them away like hens. Then they would creep past Foley's bar with the sour smell of porter coming out, and on past Sullivan's garage, where old Mr. Sullivan might be drunk, and shout at them. They could look in Wall's hardware, in case there was anything exciting, like a pair of new sharp shears, or across the road in the Central Hotel, where you might see visitors coming out if you were lucky. Usually you just saw Philip O'Brien's awful father glowering at everyone. There was the meat shop, which made them feel a bit sick. They could go into Dillon's and look at birthday cards and pretend they were going to buy, but the Dillons never let them read the comics or magazines. The thing they liked doing most was going to see Sister Madeleine, the hermit who lived in a very small cottage by the lake. Sister Madeleine had great fun being a hermit, because everyone worried about her and brought her food and firewood. No one could remember when she had come to live in the old abandoned cottage at the water's edge, People were vague about what community Sister Madeleine had belonged to at one time and why she had left, but nobody doubted her saintliness. Sister Madeleine saw only good in people and animals. Her bent figure was to be seen scattering crumbs for the birds or stroking the most snarling and bad-tempered dog. She had a tame fox, which came to lap up a saucer of bread and milk in the evenings, and she was rarely without splints to mend a broken wing of a bird she had found on her travels. Even Dr. Kelly, Cleo's father, said that Sister Madeleine knew as much as he did about some things, childbirth and how to console the dying. She never spoke about other people, so everyone knew that their secrets were safe. "What will we bring her?" Kit asked. Nobody ever went to Sister Madeleine empty-handed. "I know!" Kit had a sudden inspiration. "Rita's making jam. We'll take a pot of it." That would, of course, mean going home. Rita was the maid at the McMahons. But the jam was cooling on the back window. They could just lift a pot of it. This seemed by far the safest way of getting a gift for Sister Madeleine the Hermit without having to run the gauntlet of a home interrogation. The McMahons lived over the chemist shop in the main street of Lough Glass. You could get in up the front stairs beside the shop or else go around the back. There was nobody about when Kit slipped into the yard and climbed the back steps. She tiptoed to the window where the jam sat in containers of every sort and shape and took one of the more common jars. It would be less likely to be missed. With a shock, she saw a figure through the window. Her mother was sitting at the table, perfectly still. There was a faraway look on her face. To Kit's dismay, she saw that tears were falling down her mother's cheeks. She moved quietly away. Cleo was waiting. "Were you spotted?" she asked. "No," Kit was short. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. You always think something's wrong when nothing ever is." "Do you know, Kit, you're becoming as bad a pain in the bottom as awful Anna is. God, you're lucky you haven't any sisters." "I have Emmett." But they both knew Emmett was no problem. Emmett was a boy, and he went his own way, fought his own battles, which were many because he had a speech impediment and the other boys mimicked his stutter. Emmett, they called him. Emmett always answered back. "At least I'm not the school dunce," he would say, or, "At least I don't have the smell of pigs on my boots." The trouble was, it took him a long time to say these things, and his tormentors had often gone away. "What's annoying you?" Cleo persisted as they walked down the lane towards the lake. "I suppose someone will marry you eventually, Cleo, but it'll have to be someone very patient, maybe stone-deaf even." There was no way that Kit McMahon was going to let Cleo worm out of her the fact that it had been very shocking to see her mother crying like that. Sister Madeleine was pleased to see them. Her face was lined, her hair was hidden under a short dark veil. She was very old. Kit and Cleo didn't know exactly how old, but very old. 50 or 60 or 70. "A pot of jam," said Sister Madeleine with excitement. "Will we all have tea?" It was exciting having tea there, not boring like at home. There was an open fire and a kettle hanging on a hook. People had given Sister Madeleine little stoves and cookers, but she'd always pass them on to someone less fortunate. You knew that if you gave her anything for her own comfort, it would end up in the caravan of a travelling family or someone who needed it more. She cut slices of bread and spread the jam as if it were a feast that she was preparing. Cleo and Kit told Sister Madeleine news about Lough Glass, about old Mr. Sullivan up at the garage coming out in the middle of the night in his pyjamas chasing angels. "He's as mad as a hatter," Cleo explained. "Well, we're all a bit mad, I expect," Sister Madeleine said. "It's that stops us being too much alike, you know, like peas in a pod." They helped her wash and tidy away the remains of tea. As Kit opened the cupboard, she saw another pot of jam, exactly the same as the one she had brought. Well, perhaps her mother had been here today. If so, Sister Madeleine had not told them, any more than she told anyone about the visits from Cleo and Kit. Tea in the McMahon household had been at 6:15 for as long as Kit could remember. Dad closed the pharmacy at 6, but never on the dot. would never do to rush people out the door.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?